Dark Souls release day is a nice little event. People band together and communicate to conquer the challenges of the game. Got to say, it was nice to be part of that this time, since I've never played a Souls game on release. Whilst I did enjoy my time with Dark Souls 3, people give these games undeserved reverence, I think. Fans treat a new Souls game like it's the second coming of Christ, but they're not perfect. Dark Souls 3 is quite clearly a remix of what has been before, taking the elements you're familiar with and arranging them in some new and interesting ways. It combines some of the series' best elements, but it also leaves the game to feel like it's treading familiar ground. Some environments, whilst masterfully designed and not quite as interconnected as others in the series, feel familiar straight away. There's an area where the floor is poisoned, there's a bridge with a dragon patrolling it, there's a spooky forest, a sewer with giant rats, etc. As a new player, these environments spice up the journey by adding some variety, but any veterans of the series will probably feel underwhelmed. Nevertheless, they are a joy to explore. Detail is crammed into each one, giving you a great atmosphere to get absorbed into, one of hopelessness. Going off the beaten path is keenly rewarded, with secrets and optional areas to discover. The game also has a lot more loot than previous games, as well as more resources to upgrade your weapons, making experimentation a lot more viable. Exploration is pretty much mandatory. There's no signposting on where to go or communicating to you what you're meant to do compared to the norm of most games. In its early stages, it is a noticeably less difficult game. It introduces you to its mechanics and nudges you towards your next destination without the need to put waypoints everywhere. As the game progresses, it obviously becomes more difficult. Environments become more labyrinth-esque, enemies ramp up in their aggression, and it actually has a difficulty curve rather than the wonky ups and downs of the previous games. As such, it feels like a lot more competently put together piece of work. There's a real sense of adventure, like you're overcoming a hero's trials, albeit a set of horrible, grim trials. The story is the same as it has always been in the Souls games. You have to find it yourself in the item descriptions, as well as piecing together the riddle-filled dialogue NPCs talking. It's not exactly how I think you should tell a story. Your exposition should be weaved in, rather than asking the viewer to do a load of reading. It's okay in games where it fleshes out the lore and such, but it shouldn't be a way to tell the whole story. But I'm not in Dark Souls for the story, I'm in it for the interesting environments, bosses and challenging combat. Yes, Dark Souls 3 is hard, however the genius way it approaches difficulty by letting you do things to make it easier for yourself rather than just having choices at the start of the game is an interesting design choice. No matter what you do, it is still challenging, and I still have the opinion that it's not exactly well designed difficulty. See, when you die in any Souls game, it's not because of a cleverly designed gameplay scenario or great AI, you'll die because the game stacks the deck against you. Enemies' attacks clip through walls, they pivot in place mid-attack, a big horde of enemies spray massive curse clouds at you that kill you in one hit. Sure, there are times when you die through your own errors, but it seems few and far between. Another part responsible for this is the combat system itself. Whilst it works amazingly well against one or two opponents, where you're managing your stamina, tempting each enemy out to attack to leave an opening, and figuring out the patterns, it takes on an almost puzzle-like quality. Against a group, not so much. The lock-on refuses to switch to another target unless you're close enough to see their paws. The camera also doesn't seem to give you a decent view of your foes, as well as it getting stuck on walls and obscuring your view. Also, plenty of the bosses have the what I like to call I'm taking my ball and going home attack. You'll get their pattern down, it's going well, get them down to below a quarter health, then bam, they do some kind of Dragon Ball Z power up and kill you in one hit. Souls difficulty is great when you're punished for not taking your time and learning the enemy patterns, and there is that here. Bosses all feel like hurdles to overcome, but it's ignorant to suggest that every death is the player's fault. It's a shame that people focus on the difficulty in these games because that isn't what makes them good. Case in point, Dark Souls 2 focused on the difficulty and it was shit. And before any of you type the famous "we can't accept criticism" retort of "get good," I died probably less than 30 times throughout the whole game. I wish I had a way to prove it, but I'm pretty sure it was around there. If anyone knows how to get a death counter, let me know. To top off the challenge, and the one thing that came really close to ruining it for me, the invasions. You see, when you're embered, which is essentially the form you have to be in to summon other players, as well as giving you more health, you are prone to be invaded by other players aiming to kill you. And Dark Souls 3 carries on the series' tradition of having absolutely toilet netcode. Lag all over the place kills these fights. There's about a 3-second delay from when you swing to when your opponent actually takes damage. Enemies teleport, attacks don't connect even though your sword clearly goes through them. Then you'll get backstabbed even though the player was right in front of you. It's utter shy, and to make it worse, the people who invade are always that guy. You know who I'm on about, those little sad virgins who spend every waking second on the game perfecting their build just so they can go and gank people to feel better about their hollow, shitty lives. It's a stupid system, it's just there for players who want to be dickheads. If people want to PvP, that's fine. But for people like me who don't care about PvP and just want to use the co-op feature and play the game, there should be a way to opt out. Let the PvPers do it away from the normal people. The co-op also suffers from the lag, but not as much as PvP. I also had problems with summoning people. The dreaded unable to summon Phantom was a common message. All this might sound like I'm being a bit negative on the game, but I did still really enjoy it. What Dark Souls sets out to do, it gets right. It's a very decent atmospheric dungeon crawler, but believe me, it ain't perfect. The Souls formula was definitely still engaging for this outing, but saying that, I'm quite glad that this is the last Souls game. The familiarity started to turn into fatigue, so it's nice to see the series bow out now before it all gets mundane. However, this formula makes a lot of money, so I'm sure we'll see more games of this ilk, and it will be driven into the ground like most ideas in video games.